Hey guys, it's Andrew Henderson here in Bogota, Colombia. Just bought a really nice apartment down the street here, hanging out in this penthouse for a little while, putting together some of the renovations, spending some time in Bogota. But this penthouse, with everything brand new, everything glistening, really reminded me of when people ask me about investing in Batumi, Georgia. I recently talked about the Tbilisi Real Estate Masterclass that we're putting together, where I'm going to spend 4 days showing everyone around how to invest in Tbilisi and all the mistakes that I've made and introducing them to everyone in my network. And someone said, well, hey, why don't you just buy a cheap apartment in Batumi? It's a lot easier than having to go through learning all of this stuff. And I'll tell you a couple things about my general philosophy, and I'll tell you my philosophy about Batumi in general. My general philosophy, particularly in a smaller domestic market like in Georgia, is you want to invest in the capital. For me, there's only one place to invest, and that is the capital. Number one, second-tier cities often aren't any cheaper than the capital. I've seen that in a lot of countries around Eastern Europe in particular, if we're talking about Georgia. The other macro philosophy that I almost always have, I've made one kind of sort of exception to this once when it made sense, but almost always I never buy property directly from the developer. I try and avoid it at all costs. Why? Number one, developers have a lot of hype. They're in the business of marketing. I don't mind marketing. I'm in the business of marketing. But when you are buying real estate because there's a woman showing her cleavage, looking, she's wearing an evening gown and looking out upon a busy skyline, and that motivates you to come in, and you start to forget about what the price should be. For me, that's just not a good deal. And so I look at my friend Reed Kirkenbauer, for example, who has a property fund in Cambodia. He's doing deals in what I call the Tier A locations. He bought a property for $850 a meter, almost like steps from the royal palace. Meanwhile, all the Chinese investors who are coming in, who have driven up prices through the roof in the coastal city of Sihanoukville, have started buying up properties in these glimmering new condo buildings that are going to be like halfway to the airport on the light rail line, $2,000 a meter. I'm now seeing and hearing about inventory in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, $3,000 a meter. I'm in the Beverly Hills of Bogota for half of that price, actually less. I'm buying in Kuala Lumpur in KLCC for less. People are coming in and buying these glimmering buildings. And so I just think if you want to be successful investing probably a lot of places, you don't necessarily want to buy new. There are some exceptions, but you often don't want to buy new. And so in relation to Batumi in general, someone says, well, yeah, hey, Andrew, why not just go and spend $39,000 or even $29,000 buying a new condo building in Batumi? What can go wrong? Well, maybe nothing will go wrong. I mean, the cool thing about buying from a developer is if the building is completed, you would hope that there's no nonsense going on. Now, obviously, in some countries, if you buy buildings or buy apartments from developers when they're off plan or when they're being constructed, sometimes in some countries, the scam is just to not finish them and leave you with a heap of rubble. If the apartment is completed, if the building's completed, maybe you have some hope. The challenge is Batumi is advertised everywhere in the world. You fly in Georgian Airways, they've got ads for developers who have offices as far away as New York. They're running ads on Moscow radio. You've got all these people coming down from Russia who can't afford anything in Moscow or St. Petersburg, at least not a rental property. And they're being enticed by these low prices. I mean, after all, every time I go on an airline and I flip through, oh yeah, that looks cheap. That might be fun just for giggles, right? And the problem with that is there's no real return because you have basically the entire first line of the sea to Batumi and also some areas behind it built with these beautiful buildings that are dozens of stories high in some cases. You've got all this inventory, all these people who want to be absentee landlords who just have $30,000, $40,000 put their money in Batumi. Who's renting these? Batumi is very similar to like a Montenegro, except that, unfortunately, much as I love Georgia, it's not as nice as Montenegro. The development's not as high. I know that they're working on it, but right now it's just not quite there yet. It is nice, but there's not as much to do. The Black Sea just isn't as interesting, I think, as the Adriatic Sea. So you've got a lot of regional, travel, but you also have a problem that people from Russia, people from Armenia, might go to Crimea, for example. People in Turkey go to the Turkish coast. So you have kind of a limited market. You have somewhat of a domestic market. You have a product that if you are looking to go where you're treated best for beaches, you probably wouldn't go there. It's a summer market, so your yields are going to be limited to the summer. There is some property management there, but you're relying on that. And quite frankly, who's going to buy an apartment when you have tons of oversupply? Who's going to buy your apartment when there's all this oversupply, when you're competing with developers? You're certainly not going to make any money. You're not going to charge more money than the developer is. Developers are able to offer discounts. They have scale. You don't have that. And so this is a tale that could apply not just to Batumi, but to a lot of other places. And this is the lure of people that people fall for when they say, oh, I can just buy something for $30,000. What can possibly go wrong? Well, what can possibly go wrong is you won't make any money. Now, there are times when in certain countries you might want to buy a property that's mediocre because you want a residence permit, or because it's going to lead to citizenship. And I've done that. There's times when I've done deals where I sold it for basically exactly what I paid for it a year, 2 years later, but it helped me accomplish some other goal. So if you personally want to live in Batumi, right, I personally like to live in Kuala Lumpur, which is kind of a similar market, other than it's not seasonal. Kuala Lumpur has a lot of supply. Yields are relatively low, but I made the decision that I wanted to spend time there. I wanted my house to look exactly the way I wanted it to look. I wanted to decorate it, knock out walls, paint things, hang art, and not have to worry about a Malaysian Chinese landlord telling me what to do or deciding they wanted to sell the property and I had to move. I own in Kuala Lumpur, which is a market that has some of the same characteristics of Batumi, solely as a lifestyle decision. And to some extent as a currency play, that I do think there'll be some currency appreciation. And I also think in the long term, Kuala Lumpur will eventually catch up with some of the less developed cities in Southeast Asia that cost more. So it's a long-term play for me. As a short-term play, it's a lifestyle play. And so to me, that's what Batumi is. If you like the idea of living in Batumi, and we had a guy who we put together his whole plan, we helped him with his entire offshore plan. We decided, hey, he wanted to live in Batumi. So he went and lived in Batumi for about 1.5 years, and he enjoyed it. But as a real estate investment market, the word I can say is value trap. That's the phrase I can use. Don't fall for offshore value traps. Sure, there's stuff that's cheap. I recently went on a tour with some folks I was helping who came to Tbilisi. They wanted to invest in property, and we have I told you I have 2 good real estate agents in the entire country. I've been there for 5 years, found 2 good agents. One rents and sells, one only sells. And the one that rents and sells was taking us around, and someone said, oh, this property seems a little bit expensive. And she said, gold is expensive. And what I want you to understand is, even in a market like Tbilisi, even in a market like Georgia, you probably want to pay a little bit more. There are some really good deals that can work out well. But if you're looking to be an absentee landlord and park money in a place with oversupply, I think that's probably a really bad idea. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.